Hi there YouTube, it's Clormo with another Logic Pro X tutorial on the Season 3, the Alchemy mini series. I'm going to be talking about some basic arpeggiator controls. In the last video I gave kind of an overview of the arpeggiator, and like I've been saying, we are nearing the end of the Alchemy series. Actually, this weekend the next 3 videos are gonna come out this weekend. From that point onward, then the rate of videos in English is gonna go down a little bit, and then while I catch up with the Spanish version, and in the end, I've said this before in my plans in other videos. Again, it's gonna be like 2 videos, one English and Spanish version of the same video a week, and all the other content on YouTube is gonna be filled out with beats and written material. But enough of that. I just wanted, as usual, to say if you like the content that I've been putting out, please subscribe if you haven't done so. If you're new to the channel and you like this or any of my other videos, please subscribe. If you liked the videos, you can hit the like button. You didn't like them, same, you can hit the dislike button. Leave me comments, questions, and you can also search for me and communicate with me on all the other social media ventures that and places that I have there. Sorry, at the bottom of the video. And now let's go into the Logic Pro X window so we can get started. So we're dealing with the arpeggiator still. Remember that you can only see it in the browse or advanced view. So I already gave an overview. Today, then, I'm going to be talking about the basic controls, which are this area here only. So the basic arpeggiator controls consist of several buttons that we have here at the top. There's a key, trigger, pop-up menu, and then there's 9 knobs, 4 in this area, and then 1 for the mode. Going through each one, then first of all, we have this all A, B, and C, D buttons. So like other controls, this correspond to the sources. So you choose the target source that is used to play the arpeggiator pattern. When you have all, then the pattern is played by all the active sources, of course, because you're saying all. And then the different discrete letters, right, We'll do the same, but for each of the 4 sources that we have available in Alchemy. You can restrict a pattern to a single source in this way by adjusting the settings for each of the arpeggiators that are going to be present for A, B, C, and D. And as you can see, everything, as I go through the different source buttons, every parameter in the arpeggiator is exactly the same. And that's in that way by design. So by default you have that, and unless you go into each one of them and you change some of the parameters, you're going to have that. Obviously the all has some different information that I had done some changes on when it was active in the last video. You can also activate and create different patterns for any combination of source arpeggiators, obviously, and this will result in up to 4 simultaneous but different arpeggiated sources. So in layman's terms, right, if I have something here for A, and then I go and then do something like that for B, and then for C I do something in that way, and then I do something for D, I can have those 4 different ones act simultaneously, but they all have different parameters. And obviously, if you're paying attention, the different knobs change as I was fiddling around a little bit with here, but we're gonna get to that in the next video actually. So moving on, I wanted to make a note here is that Alchemy uses separate voices to play arpeggiated and non-arpeggiated output. So as I was saying in the beginning, you can adjust the settings for A, B, C, and D. The other 3 sources, if you are in A, the other 3 will have no arpeggiation, if you don't do anything here, or if you adjust the sentence in such a way that when you have A active, the other ones will not trigger, right? When you do all of them are going to be triggering. So you can, again, activate and create different patterns for any combination of those sources, and this will result in up to 4 different ones. So since Alchemy uses the voices to play ones that are arpeggiated and the ones that are not, you need at least a parameter of 2 for the number of voices in the master voices section. So unless you have a number parameter in 2, you won't be able to get anything. So right now the voices are set up at 8, so we should be fine. We have 4 arpeggiators active. We're good. Moving to the right of that, there's the sync button, which is just going to synchronize the arpeggiator with the project tempo. Right now it's selected, so that would be true. If it's deselected, then it's not true. Then the trigger pop-up menu has a few different modes. And the trigger pop-up menu itself, what it does is aligns the arpeggiator and host application grid values. So notes are gonna snap to any of the values that I have here, and the list is pretty self-explanatory as to how it works, right? So it's gonna snap to rate, it's gonna snap to a different type of beat measurement, in 1/16, 1/8, 1/4, 1/2, or 1 full beat. So when you have anything other than off, then the pattern will restart when the first note is struck after a pause. This allows you to create pattern variations by playing chords on different beats in the bar. If you have legato notes, then that's not gonna re-trigger the arpeggiation because you're not changing notes in your pattern of MIDI notes. I mean, when you have the legato, you're just pressing a note in your MIDI keyboard and leave it pressed for a longer amount of time and making more chord type of sounds. So then we have now, we're moving now to the knobs. There's the mode knob, and right now it's set to off at this value. What this one does is it's gonna turn the arpeggiator on and off and determine the order in which incoming notes from your MIDI keyboard are organized into the pattern of the sequencer that you're giving it. So how are those notes that you're pressing gonna fit inside this sequencer pattern that you're making? So in addition to that, you have typical arpeggiator functions. Now, as I go around here, you see as I go vertically, right? It's the only way I can. You go from off to up, and up is just gonna play notes from lowest to highest. And if you have dealt with any arpeggiator effect in Logic, or even GarageBand for iPad has a pretty simple to use arpeggiator, these mode notes are very simple to understand, and you can visually understand them too using the your piano roll, or any other graphical way of seeing that. So you have, again, up mode plays notes from lowest to highest. Next one is note down, or mode down, which plays notes highest to lowest. Next is up and down, plays notes lowest to highest, and then back again. So up and down, from up down, and then down up is gonna do the opposite. It's gonna play notes from highest to lowest and back again. So it's coming from highest to lowest, down, and then it's gonna go up again. Then you have as next is gonna be as played. So this is gonna play notes in the order that they were originally played. So it's gonna fit in the pattern as you have pressed them. And you have then random, and that's pretty much it. It's just gonna do a random pattern. It's not gonna be in repeating order. Last, then you have chord, and chord plays all notes simultaneously as a chord, which are retriggered, and they will pulse per arpeggiator rate and rhythm from the sequencer settings. But we're not gonna go into the sequencer settings yet. That's gonna be in the next video. I promise it's gonna be quite fairly easy to understand. A note that I want to make here is that mode is a modulation target. I can right click or control click on it and see that you can add modulation to it. So what does that do? This lets you set a performance knob to modulate the mode knob that we're just seeing right now, and it's going to enable you to turn the arpeggiator on and off during a performance. So if you modulate it and then this goes from, let's say, from chord to off or to down up or whatever, that's going to happen as you're going through some MIDI information or as you're playing notes in your keyboard. So it's a pretty neat feature that differentiates this arpeggiator from a normal arpeggiator plugin or even the GarageBand one. I always like to go back to the arpeggiator in GarageBand because that's when I was introduced to arpeggiator, like back in 2012, and I was fascinated by it because you could create some melodies and some note changes and some tempo changes quickly and without doing much effort, and it still sounded good. Now we have the 8 other knobs. So the first one, the rate knob, is going to set the duration of each arpeggiator step. You get beats when sync is on. When you have sync on, the rate is going to be in beats, right? So it's going to be anywhere from any of the subdivisions that you can go in the beat. If it's off, then it's going to give you some sort of number that in reality is going to be a length of the step, and it's just given by a value from almost 0 to 256, and that's just the magnitude range that Logic uses. So sorry, I cannot explain it any more further than that, but that's really what it is. And you have the Octave Knob. This is going to determine if the pattern is across higher octaves when it's repeating, or if the pattern only plays at its original pitch. And this is very simple to use, so it can go up to 4 octaves, or it can keep its original pitch and stay that octave where you're pressing your notes. Again, the GarageBand arpeggiator is a pretty good way of noticing in the keyboard, little keyboard that you can press in the screen and see how the pattern goes around. Then you have a length knob, which is just gonna set the length of each arpeggiated note. When this is at 100%, it means that each note is as a full length, and if it's lower, then that means that you get shorter notes. Simple as that. Then you have a pattern knob, which is gonna when you can choose to activate a pattern, which is what you see here to the right. This is a pattern, right? With the all activated, sorry. So this is gonna activate the pattern. You're gonna choose any of your patterns, or you can choose. You can have up to 16. So right now, pattern number 1 in the all setting is that. If I go to number 2, all the way up to 16, they're going to be the same. Again, because they are by default set all the way the same. So you can change different ones and access them as you see fit. And guess what? You can also modulate that. All of these guys are pretty much modulation targets. So it's going to give you live performance type of results. If you can change from one pattern to the other mid-flight, like I like to say. Very powerful stuff. Then you have the swing knob. For those of you that don't know what swing is, swing is just gonna change the timing of one note versus the other. But this knob here is gonna introduce a swing timing to the arpeggiator, and in generally will work best with a rate knob setting of 1/4 of a beat or a setting of half a beat. Both of those would be 16 note swing feel or 8 note swing respectively. So if you are synced and then you go into quarter note, which I already was, then the swing will be will work a little bit better. And that there's a little bit more explanation to the swing concept, but I have covered that in previous videos. Check out my sample tutorial series. I go a little bit more into the swing effect and all that good stuff, so we're not gonna do that here. Then right after that one is the note velocity knob that determines how the arpeggiator handles note velocity values. It's simple to understand, but I want to spend a little bit more time here explaining is that when you have a value of 0 like it is right now, 0%, your pattern note velocities are determined by the arpeggiator sequencer 1, and a value of 100% means that the pattern note velocities are going to be determined by your MIDI velocities. So what does that mean? That means that there is an ARP1 and ARP2 setting that we're going to see later on. And those are your, ARP1 is the main sequencer control for Logic. So when you have 0%, your velocity information is going to be controlled by this control. When it's at 100%, then your velocities of your notes are going to be still controlled by your MIDI notes or your keyboard in that sense. So that's more natural, right? When you're pressing a note, depending on how hard, how soft you press it, it's the velocity that's going to result. So that's normal how you deal with velocities. But the sequencer with this knob lets you also control velocity information tied to the pattern and the arpeggiator itself. So just showing you how other ways that you can combine your patterns with velocities, and obviously all of that is going to create a different effect into the arpeggiator and how your effect is going to result, obviously. Then moving to the right, we have a split knob, and this is just going to set the highest MIDI note number to be included in the pattern. So any note that you play that's above this value is not going to be arpeggiated. So it's not going to go inside the pattern and repeat or do whatever it is that your pattern is going to be doing. If you set it to G8 like I have it right now, and I think by default it's typically that, then you're gonna arpeggiate all MIDI input because G8 is the highest note that you can achieve in your keyboard. So anything lower than that, you have the whole range, right? So it goes from C-2 all the way to G8. And depending on what you do, it's what you can arpeggiate and whatnot. And then last but not least is this latch knob. And latch, what that does, you can either have three options. It's either off, you have hold, or you have add. In itself, the latch mode is going to hold the pattern when you leave the keyboard in hold or add mode. If you set to off, then you stop the pattern from repeating. When you're in hold mode, any newly played notes are organized into a new pattern, which replaces the existing pattern. And if you're in add mode, then newly played notes are going to be added to the existing pattern and build upon that pattern as opposed to just replacing it. And that's really all that I had to cover in this section of the basic arpeggiator controls. I hope that although that was a little bit, I try to keep it short, and it's still a lot of info to cover in one video. Hope that you at least understood. I plan to, in the end, when I cover the whole thing, then do a little bit of show and tell as usual. So I'm not gonna do that here, just to cut the video right now, and hopefully you understood that. Start playing with yourself and investigating what all these parameters do based on what you're working on right now. And then we're gonna see in the next video the sequencer controls. So I'm gonna see you in the next video, guys. Thanks for all the support. I did not reach 100 subscribers last weekend, but I am down at 99. Let's see if that by the time that this video comes out, I finally reach 100 subscribers. Anyways, as usual, lots of thanks, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out, YouTube.